Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life. And before I get started on today's video topic, I just want to say that this has been a very exciting week for me, for my channel. Mercedes over at Mercy's Bookish Musings very kindly mentioned me in a video where she was recommending different booktubers to try and different podcasts to try. So that dramatically increased my subscriber amount over the last week. So hi to everybody that's new here at my channel. I hope that you enjoy the content that I'm making, and please feel free to leave suggestions for any topics you'd like me to address in the future. But tonight I'm talking about the history trail tag. I was tagged to do this by Mel over at Mel's Bookland Adventures. So thanks very much, Mel. First time I've been tagged by anybody to do one of these, so that's great. The original tag was created by the Novel Nomad, and I will link both of their videos down below for this tag. So let's get right to it. The first question is, first steps. What book / movie / person / place introduced you to history and or historical fiction? So the suspect here is my mother. She was a big reader, and she always read to us as kids, me and my sister. And she introduced me to the Little House on the Prairie books, of which this is the first one, Little House in the Big Woods. This is the first chapter book that I ever read when I was about 5 or 6, I guess. And she also read these out loud to us. She was my 2nd and 3rd grade teacher. And every day after lunch she would read some of the ongoing book, and one of the book series she read to us was the Little House on the Prairie series. So that started my love of historical fiction. I then moved on to reading, as I got older, picking books out of her personal library that were historical fiction books, such as Gone with the Wind, the John Jakes series, both Civil War era, and there was another series called Wagons West that I particularly liked, that was all about pioneers heading out west across to settle the western part of the United States. And then as I was in like middle school age, early teenager, I discovered this series of books, which I don't know if any of you ever encountered. This one is Laura, and they were just about different teenagers in different historical eras, and there was always a love story. There was a triangle. There were 2 boys that the girl was trying to pick between. You could get these on the school book order, the Scholastic book order, and I just absolutely love them. I always have liked a little bit of romance in my historical fiction, so that cemented my love of history and historical fiction. So question number 2, Welltrodden Path. What is your favorite historical recommendation for a book, place, or a movie? And I'm going to recommend Dorothy Dunnett's The Lyman Chronicles historical series. I think there are 5 books total in this series, and they all are about a character called Francis Crawford of Lyman. They take place in the mid-1500s. They start out in Scotland. Francis Crawford is from Scotland, and he's a teenager when we first start the series. And this series has it all: history, political intrigue, romance, a dashing hero. He's an anti-hero. Sometimes you think he's terrible. Sometimes you can't imagine why everybody doesn't love him. He is a master of disguises. It's just a fantastic series. It's super, super intelligent. I actually bought there's a companion book that you can see it actually right down here, the Dorothy Dunnett companion books by Elspeth Morrison, that kind of give you background material. There's a lot of foreign phrases and different things used, lyrics, song lyrics, poems used within the story to help illustrate points, and the companions are excellent for helping just get greater understanding of the series. But this is just fantastic historical fiction, and I would recommend anybody check it out if you're really into historical fiction. Question 3, good boots. what is your favorite historical fashion era? And for this, the answer is definitely Regency England. I am a huge fan of Regency romances, and I particularly love all the costumes, and not costumes, it was their daily wear, and just the idea that folks dressed the way they did, especially the men. I think that's what tickles me the most, is the idea of these, canary yellow waistcoats and high-heeled shoes and lots of jewelry and all these things that men got into in that time period. And so that always fascinates me, and I like to read about that, although I'm not personally big into fashion myself. Question 4, close to home, what is a historical read set in your home country? And I'm going to go closer to home than my home country. I'm going to say my home state, which is Maine. And a book that I first read when I was like 12 or 13 and still loved is Arundel by Kenneth Roberts. This is an old copy that I picked up somewhere. This first was copyrighted in 1930. And Arundel by Kenneth Roberts is a book about a character called Stephen Nason. And Stephen Nason is from a town in Maine called Arundel, and he joins up with Benedict Arnold and follows him and his troops to Quebec during the American Revolution, and it's all about their journey. And I believe this is the first book in a series of books that Kenneth Roberts wrote that is sort of historical fiction set in Maine, and it's a fantastic story. And if that sort of thing interests you, especially journeys through hardships and in the wilderness and all that sort of thing, definitely check that out. That's super fun. Another historical fiction book set in Maine that I read and enjoyed very much and would highly recommend is a book called Pink Chimneys by Ardeana Hamlin Knowles. And this book follows 3 women in early 1800s in Bangor, Maine. One woman is a midwife. One woman is set up as the mistress of a bordello, and the third woman is a illegitimate child of a local landowner who ends up coming to town to become a seamstress and finds out who her real father is in the course of living in Bangor. And it all is about when Bangor was first settled and was first becoming a city in Maine. It's about women's rights and women's health in this time period and how those things were dealt with and addressed. And I thought it was a really awesome book, really fantastic. So I would recommend that as well. Question 5, The Trail Not Taken. What historical eras do you avoid? I will pretty much read anything. I find myself generally avoiding World War II books just because I know any book set during that era is going to be a sob fest. That being said, I will still read it if it's highly recommended and I think it's going to be something that I'll enjoy, but I just know going into it that it's just going to wreck me, and so I tend to avoid books set in that era. I also tend to avoid books set in the Civil War era for the same reason, but I say that, and then I read The Underground Railroad earlier this year and loved it. So, I won't discount any book from any era. Number 6, Trail Map. What historical reads are on your TBR? Well, I have 2 here to talk about. The first one is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, and this one's been on my TBR for quite a little while. I think I picked this book up a little over a year ago at a used bookstore. And it is about Thomas Cromwell during the reign of Henry VIII, and I do want to read it. I've heard it's kind of difficult because it's in the second person, and so I think that sort of kept me from picking up more quickly, but it is an era that interests me. I've read a few books set during Henry VIII's reign that I really enjoyed. Philippa Gregory's books about Henry VIII's wives I particularly enjoyed. So I am going to read this, and it's on my TBR. And then the second one on my TBR that I'm looking forward to is Homegoing by Jessie. And this follows the lives of 2 half-sisters through time they don't know each other, and one is sold into slavery and the other is the daughter of a white slave owner and a black mom, and she stays in Africa, and this half sister that's sold into slavery gets sent to America, and it's sort of goes out through the generations from there, through their descendants. So I am very interested to read this book. It's been talked about a lot on BookTube and gathered a lot of praise. So I think it's going to be an excellent read. Pioneers. What historical person inspires you? And I don't know that I would particularly pick out any specific person, but anybody in the historical era that has overcome huge obstacles and to change how history happened is somebody that inspires me. So any of the pioneers, whether they be from the United States or any other country that left their home and went somewhere new to start a new life and form a new community, that inspires me. Just the courage that sort of commitment takes inspires me. Any of the leaders that changed the course of history, and changed what the mores and the what was thought of as set in stone at their time, and bucked the system and changed those things, whether that be, FDR setting up social safety net programs in the United States, or Abraham Lincoln writing the Emancipation Proclamation, anybody like that. I think that one of my personal heroes it would be Sally Ride, the astronaut, but she's not super historical. She was alive in my lifetime. So, but first woman astronaut, pretty cool. So, and then the last question here is tag your fellow history nerds. I'm not going to tag anybody specifically because I'm not sure who's already been tagged, and I don't know a whole lot of people yet, very specifically by their channels. So I would just say, if you're watching this and you would like to do this tag, if you find it interesting, please consider yourself tagged, and also please make a comment down below and tell me that you've made a video, and because I would love to come watch it and see what your answers to these questions would be. Again, thanks to Mel over at Mel's Bookland Adventures for tagging me, and I will talk to you later. Bye.